This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So that's actually going to be the focus of my toolbox talk. I'm going to talk to you guys about the dangers of working around power lines and how you can work around them safely. Okay, so you can see that I have a presentation being broadcasted as part of this toolbox talk if you'd like to follow along. And what I've done here, guys, is I gathered some statistics from Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro. And these are the most recent statistics for power line contacts in this province. And as you can see, from Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, there have been 80 public incidents so far this year, and the year is not even quite over yet. So that's a lot. That's a lot of public incidents. And I think it's also important for us to note here, and you'll see that there's a couple of notes at the bottom of the slide, that not all of these incidents involved contact being actually made, because one of the characteristics of electricity is that it can jump or arc towards you or your equipment. So it's really important to just be cautious about how you're working around these electrical power lines. I think it's also worth noting that if you look up at the top of this slide under where it states that we have 80 public incidents, that 3 of them involved tree trimming operations, brush clearing, or cutting of firewood, and we have 6 that involved working with ladders or scaffolds. And that tells you that you don't always have to be using mobile equipment to make contact. But if we did want to look at mobile equipment, or heavy equipment, I should say, there have been 26 incidents occur so far this year involving that type of an activity. And further broken down, you will see that of the 26 heavy equipment incidents, 3 of them involve the use of an excavator. We have 10 involving the use of dump trucks, 5 flatbed transport, 4 involving snowplow operations, 1 loader, 2 boom truck, and 1 backhoe. So to me, that's an alarming number of incidents in this province so far. I wanted to add a couple of pictures here just to illustrate how easy these types of incidents could occur. And as you can see in this picture, the operator left their dump up. And that it's just as easy as that. The dump was left up. Maybe the operator was in a hurry, didn't look up to notice that there was power lines above their head. And lo and behold, we have contact made with an overhead power line. Here's another example of a power line incident. And in this case, we have an excavator making contact with the equipment overhead and actually ripping the power equipment down. So not only electrical contact made, but damage to this infrastructure. And in the last picture that I have here, we have an example of how easy it is for equipment such as a boom truck to make contact with overhead power lines. So then the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what can we do? And as you saw with the statistics I presented to you at the beginning of this toolbox talk, there's still a high number of recorded incidents in this province. So there's a few things that we should be focusing on. What can we do? So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is just the fact that when you go to do a job, that you should take that time to look around. And here's where you would be looking for any presence of power lines, whether they're over your head or perhaps you don't see any overhead power lines and maybe they're buried beneath your feet. So that's called doing your pre-job hazard assessment. And it is required for every single task that you do perform. So look around and see if there are any potential power lines that you can make contact with. And as I said, sometimes you may not see the power lines because they are buried below your feet. If you see equipment such as what you see in the picture here, which is a pad mount transformer, that is your first indication that there are buried lines in your vicinity. And you may not always see one of these transformers, so it's really important to remember that catchphrase, dial before you dig, and to contact the utility companies just to make sure that if there are any buried lines, that you get them marked out and identified so that you don't make contact. Something else that is really important is to make sure that you're properly trained for your task. And training involves, especially for equipment operators, the Newfoundland Labrador Occupational Health and Safety Regulations are going to tell you that if you're operating any mobile equipment, such as a crane or a boom truck or anything similar, which would be things like an aerial work platform, for example, that you have to have power line hazards training. And this training is mandatory in the province of Newfoundland Labrador. It's a half-day course and it's valid for 3 years, and it has to be the WorkplaceNL standardized training course. So not only being trained in that power line hazards course, but also, as you can see in the picture, having a meeting before you start your job and just talking about the job and how to do the task in the safest possible way. So we just talked about doing a pre-job hazard assessment. This is a great opportunity to review that with everybody on the job. Something else that is really important is to keep a safe distance. What you would learn in the training, the power line hazards training course, is that minimum distance which must be maintained. And it is stated in the provincial regulations. And that safe distance is actually 18 feet. It's 5.5 meters or 18 feet. Sometimes you may not be able to maintain that safe distance. So what you have to do then is you have to get permission from the utility company. And what I've shown you here on your screen is an example of a power line hazards permit from Newfoundland Power. This is you getting permission from the utility company to get closer than 18 feet. And what you would have to do is call the owner of the utilities. And in this case, I've shown you a Newfoundland Power permit, but you can also get a permit from Newfoundland Labrador Hydro. And that permit will then specify how close they will allow you to get based on the type of work that you're doing and the lines that you are working around. And that permit has to be visible to anybody who is working on that job site who needs to see it. And a great example of that would be the person who, or the persons who are operating the mobile equipment. That is part of their right to know that there is permission granted for them to get closer than that minimum clearance of 18 feet. Something else that we have to remember is how electricity travels. So electricity always wants to become grounded. It's one of the main characteristics of electricity, actually, is that it always seeks the easiest path to the ground. And as you can see in the picture, it's a really good visual actually for you to keep in your head, is that once electricity makes its way to the ground, which is now entering at the source, it does start to spread gradually away from the source. And you can see in the picture that there's different colors to illustrate this, just to give you, something to remember. And as it spreads from the source of contact and gradually makes its way out, the voltage levels are also making their way out, and they are decreasing as they make their way. And this is why you're not supposed to walk or run away from where the electricity entered the ground. Because if you do, you're potentially putting yourself in 2 different levels of voltage potential. And that means that electricity can then travel through your body, which could be fatal. If you do make contact with electrical equipment, so power lines which are above your head or below your feet, the best thing for you to do is to stay in the vehicle and don't panic. And the reason for this is for the reasons that I just stated, that if you leave the equipment, then you are stepping onto the ground, which is potentially full of electricity. So the best thing for you to do, again, is to stay in your vehicle. And the other thing that you have to do is tell other people not to come towards you. And the reason, again, is because if they start to run or walk towards you, they are walking on ground, which is potentially full of electricity, and they could be electrocuted, severely injured, or be killed. The other thing that you must do is contact the owner of the utility company. So if you make contact with Newfoundland Power's infrastructure, you must contact them and let them know. And that is now an emergency situation, and they will assess what's happening in that situation and make it safe for you to get away. So that also should tell you that you should have a copy of their phone numbers, maybe in your vehicle, so that you can make that phone call ASAP. If you have to get out for whatever reason, a great reason would be that your vehicle has started to catch fire. What you have to do is get out of your equipment safely. So what you need to do there is jump free and clear of the equipment. And what I mean by that is no part of your body is to touch the equipment and to touch the ground at the same time. So when you jump, you should make sure that you jump from a safe level and try not to stumble or fall. So take your time. When you do jump, do not let any part of your body touch the equipment and the ground at the same time, because you do not want to create any sort of a bridge between the ground and the equipment to allow electricity to pass through your body. Once you get out, you should let your 2 feet hit the ground at the same time in the same spot. And then what you have to do is either hop or shuffle away. And you'll see a picture of that now in the next slide. And I just wanted to bring this up again, that you have to remember that electricity travels. And this is again why you do not walk or run away. The reason why you're hopping or shuffling is that you're keeping yourself in the same voltage potential in the ground at the same time. So the hop or shuffling away means that if you are to hop, you're hopping in short hops with your feet together, making sure that they hit the ground at the same time. Don't try to overextend your hops, because there's a chance that you could fall. If you decide that you want to shuffle, you have to make sure that your heels don't pass your toes, and that keeps you in that same level of voltage potential at the same time. And what you have to do, as you can see in the slide there, is do that for at least 33 feet. After that point, you are considered to be a safe distance from where the electricity entered the ground. So guys, that's my toolbox talk. That's just a little something to get you thinking about the dangers about working around electrical wires and how you can keep yourself safe. If you are an equipment operator, then the law requires that you do have power line hazards training. So I just wanted to end with saying that we do offer that training course here at the NLCSA. It's a half-day course. If you're interested in registering, then you can go to our website, or you can contact the safety advisor and have a chat about that. Okay, thanks everybody. And as the slide says, get home alive, be safe around power lines. So thanks very much for tuning in and have a great day.